Lewis, thank you so much for your time today. It's been quite a week for you. You recently resigned from the position of governor. How has it been this past week for you?
To be honest with you, I don't know if anyone of you know, but it was on my mind for quite some time. This week, though, was just extra dramatic considering the kidnapping.
Okay. Yeah, I want to take you back actually to a very long time ago, about to 2017. Me and you were in the same PD academy on the
We were.
14th of October. I'm sure you remember very well. And you started off as a police officer with me. You were rising through the ranks, and you became a commissioner on the 27th of February 2020. Um, did you always kind of have that plan in your mind? Was that always something you were interested in, or how did that come about?
Absolutely not. So, I was quite happy in PD. I particularly, and I'll say this to everyone, being a detective was one of the happiest days or the happiest memories of my life or period of my life, uh, because there was just such a variety to it. It was never being a commissioner was never part of the plan. I helped out Ramon Cart with a number of things, and then he asked us for help, and that's how it became a thing.
Okay, yeah, I remember how hard you worked to be a detective. It meant a lot to you at the time, so it kind of been easy to walk away from that. Um, and you served for 5 years, it's a very long time, and it can't have been easy for you to take this decision. So you said it's been on your mind for a while, but when was the moment you knew you had to step down?
I'd say 3 months. Like particularly this last year, it sort of took lots of things had happened, and it took like a personal toll on me as a person in my personal life. And then I realised that perhaps I wouldn't have been as negatively affected by what happened if my job wasn't so stressful. So I'd say that just before Christmas, I knew that I wanted to go. I just didn't know when.
And then, in the days leading up to your resignation, what would you say were the main events that contributed to you finally saying, that's it?
I'd say, well, obviously the kidnapping, the execution of Gabe Ehrmantraut. I felt that, if I stayed any longer, is there going to be yet another terrorist I have to sign an executive order and execute? I didn't want that. I felt
Mm.
that that was an appropriate moment to exit.
Yeah, and you talk about the kidnapping. Could you maybe just give us a few more sort of details to what happened that day? Um, you know, do you know who kidnapped you and why it happened, and how did that unfold in the end?
So it was a completely random group who I don't even think they call themselves a group. But thanks to the efforts of PDNSD, they found me. The I actually got kidnapped twice that day, believe it or not. So the first lot
Right.
of kidnappers dropped me off in Palomino Bluffs. You know that like industrial area, not industrial area, desert area. Like on a mountain. And
Yeah.
then just as I thought I was free, I got held up by additional randomers, and luckily PDNSD found me.
That can't have been easy, and yeah, you obviously have been threatened and attacked a few times, most notably by an organization called the Shadows, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there is still a threat against you from the Shadows? Do you think that you still have things to be worried about, or do you think that that's now done since that you've resigned?
I still think there are people out there with scores to settle. I don't particularly think the shadows are after me anymore. I think they were just after Gov as an organization, and I was the easiest one to choose, right? But I can't actively say that I'm comfortable with walking around by myself. Like a lot of the time, so I might go to public areas, but I do have GSB protection for life.
Okay. Um, and that must be very difficult for you, given that you stepped down and you still have to fear for yourself and your safety. and you mentioned how it took a toll on your personal life. I mean, could you maybe give us a bit more of an insight as to how that came about and how you started to feel like it was taking a toll on your personal life? And what ways was it affecting you?
Well, not only was I extremely affected personally, like I'm not going to go into details because it's not appropriate, but um, you know, so basically there was the personal element, and then the professional element didn't stop. So the attacks were constant, whether or not it was shadows or the fake bombs or just generally anything, like convoys being attacked. It just when does it end?
Yeah, for sure. And going through your time as the governor, um, why do you feel like you were given such a negative reputation? Can you pinpoint where it started? Do you think it had to do any particular incidents or anything you did, or was it always there from the beginning?
I think that being in an office, being in that office, you're always in, and people are always entitled to criticize and voice their opinions, right? And that's always welcome. And if they didn't, I'd be worried. I don't think there was any particular highs and lows. Obviously, we had um, Sophia Falcone, but to me, she was a serial killer, and I'm glad that she's gone. Um, I don't think there was anything particular. I just think that it built up over a 5-year period, and it was easier just to blame me because I think that they thought that all of the decisions were solely my own. Not the board of governors, or the people in Gov. We had lots of people, and we do have, still does have lots of great people in Gov who made decisions, but and continue to make them. But I think that just because they saw me, at the figurehead, I was the most easiest to blame.
You definitely became the face of the government, I would say, and certainly from the outside inwards, it looked like you were the person basically making all the decisions. Do you think in the end that backfired against you? Do you regret the fact that it ended up like that?
I don't regret a thing, um, and I say that because I work with some wonderful, wonderful people, and I hope that they continue to be great, and I mean they will continue to be great. Um, yeah,
And you would say you always had great relationships with people in Gov as well, and that continues beyond your resignation as well?
yeah, absolutely. Had great working relationships with everyone in government.
Okay. Um, well, looking back on your time, you were involved in many different things, many different creations, establishing many different things in the city, new companies and divisions and aspects of the government as well. Do you have any particular highlights, anything that you're proud of?
Um, Law Review Committee. I think no, I'm not going to take credit for setting that on my own, but I think that gave everyone a great taste of what democracy was like. What did disappoint me though is that I don't think it's well known enough because I would like to have seen more people run. You know, there was often spots where we didn't have enough qualifying candidates, so we might have had to have appointed the one or the two. There is a particular term for it. Emily will tell me, but I just wish that more people sort of do run and implement laws that they would like to see, in the penal code and changes because that's the whole reason why it was established.
Right. I had a quick look back today, and I think since you became commissioner, you have overseen the appointment of about 15 people in leadership positions of various companies in the city, departments, and within the government itself and the judicial branch. Um, would you say you could look back on those now and be proud of all the appointments you made? Or do you look back on any of them and think, perhaps that wasn't the right decision?
There's a few appointments that I'd sort of say that weren't the right decision, but I just think it's unfair to name them publicly, but obviously decisions like that were made for various reasons at the time, and they were deemed the best candidates, for the job at the time. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but Not every
Excellent.
appointment was absolutely, I do regret a few.
Okay. And you obviously had some commissioners work alongside you, the likes of Samuel Osborne, Jason Castillo as well. Some people at the beginning, Ramon Carter, for example. Do you feel like you had adequate help during your time? Enough people were there to support you? Do you feel like maybe you sometimes had a bit too much on your plate?
100%, yes. I felt like I could have been supported slightly more, but I'm not blaming anyone because everyone goes through sort of personal elements in their lives. Osborne needed to go to Mexico for some time. Castillo was quite busy doing various other things. Um, so, what I do wish is more people apply to Gov and sort of help support that chain of command. Um, because everyone I did have around me at the time was fantastic.
Yeah. And do you do you think then that you did everything in your power, and you did everything to the best of your ability, and you couldn't have done any more during your time to maybe make better relations with people, or to maybe make certain decisions that would have maybe changed people's perceptions of the government? Or do you feel like you could have maybe done a few things differently now looking back on it?
Um, I do think that I could have done more press conferences, right, and explained the reasons around various executive orders. But the problem with that is there's a certain amount of intelligence, obviously gathered from various sources, and not everything can be explained beforehand, and not to jeopardize any active or previous or ongoing investigations. So the only thing I do wish I sort of did was maybe like a weekly session, or we were just a bit more like people, like we maybe did a monthly audience where people could submit 10 issues and they could meet someone in Gov, and they could be reviewed, and even I might have even been able to pop in and help, more human interaction rather than squabbling on Life Invader.
For sure. And I suppose, given your experience now, is that the main piece of advice you'd give to people currently in the government now? Was there anything else that you would maybe recommend to them?
Um, be patient and be kind, I think, is definitely one of them, and staying humble was also important to me. Like, I'd say that to everyone, or anyone. Um, it's very easy for people to say, transparency is key, but there's only certain things that you can be completely transparent on, and there's obviously only so much information you can give, because it affects people's lives.
For sure. I think one of the most controversial things about your time as governor was the introduction of the death penalty. You've already mentioned Sofia Falcone and more recently Gabe Ermentrout, who I think were the most notable cases. Um, I mean, just talk us through your thought process in that situation when you have law enforcement coming to you dealing with these people very regularly, and you have to balance that with the moral issue of the death penalty and whether that is something that, you know, could potentially have, massive effects on yourself, on the government, on the city as a whole, and its reputation. I mean, how did you handle that, and would you do anything differently with that now, looking back?
Um, Great question. Would I do anything differently? Absolutely not. I still firmly believe that those two. I'm happy that they're dead, and I'm really sorry for saying that. Um, but you look at how many how many families Sophia affected, and how many lives Gabe took on the day when they blew up City Hall. I mean, these people, they never change. You sort of need to draw a line between how many more lives do you want them to affect, how many more families do you want them to traumatize, and how many more people do you want to allow them to kill before, you know, ultimately they receive the death penalty. Because clearly, our sentences and our institutions didn't do enough for them, and I think quite frankly it wasn't the institution's fault. I think that they were beyond help.
So, moving on. In terms of the future of the government, what do you think the future looks like for the government? Do you think there should be a new governor? Do you have anyone in particular that you would like to see become a new governor? And how do you think they're going to go forward from your departure?
So there is one person who I would like to see as the new governor, and that is Emily Whitehorse.
And why is that?
She's worked tremendously to get where she is. Um, and I had a great time working with her. She's completely knowledgeable in all things, and I think she's completely got what it takes to become the next governor. The only thing I would say is be careful who you choose. You know, choose your leadership team wisely. Don't be rushed into picking people. That never worked. But Emily's got my vote 100%.
And as well as Emily, is there anyone else at the government who you feel supported you a lot and was really important to you during your time there?
Absolutely. Andrea Fallon, Tyrone when he worked in government, Tyrone Cox, Ren Sanchez, Jabbar Williams, Lester Conway. I think that's pretty much it. I have forgotten a few people, but I'll come back to that if it comes to me.
No, no worries. I'm sure they'll forgive you.
I love that
So,
post on Life Invader. New era begins, leading with grace, governing with strength. Emily's definitely
absolutely.
my vote.
So, a lot of people have sent some really positive messages to you since you've left. I'm sure you've seen a few of them on Life Invader and such. Um, what would you say to those people who've been very complimentary of your time in the government?
Um, I'd say thank you. You know, thanks very much for the kind words. Thank you for everyone's support. It was really appreciated, and it's really hard to go into work every day when knowing that you're almost public enemy number one according to Life Invader. You know.
Yeah. And what about those people that do have a negative view on your time and think that you were not the right person for this city and you made a lot of mistakes, in your time? What would you say to those people? Do you have any messages for them?
I'd just say, you know, thank you for voicing your opinion. Don't ever be afraid to speak up. Um, Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and you know, free speech is a thing.
And how would you like to be remembered as the governor?
That's a difficult question. Um, how would I like to be remembered? I'd like to be remembered as someone who did make a difference. Um, Obviously, people have their own opinions on, you know, what the death penalty and stuff, but the decisions that we made or I made for the greater good of the state and the people, you know, um, it wasn't hard signing those off, but you know, it's how many more lives do you want people to take, and there's always going to be, you know, capital punishment isn't something that you should take lightly or anyone should take lightly. But there's always going to be an argument of pros and cons, and that's been that way for hundreds of years, you know. Um, I'd also like to sort of take the opportunity and just while I'm here to say thank you again to everyone who did support me and everyone who did speak up and voice concerns as well, because that wasn't hard either. Sorry, that wasn't
Absolutely.
easy. That wasn't easy. That's what I meant.
Yeah, of course. Um, and in terms of what you would like to see next for the city, you won't be the one making the decisions, but what would you like to see uh, next in the city? What do you think is the most important thing that either the government do or just in general the city sees happen next in order to make sure that we continue to progress?
I would like everyone to support the new choice. Um, and give them a chance too. You know, there's lots of things that they might go in and decide to do differently, and to establish a team and to change how things work. Nothing happens overnight. Things take time. Give that time, and continue. You know, putting questions in, uh, and you know, respect the rule of law as well. I mean, dealing with terrorists is never an easy task, but there's a balance.
And what about yourself, Lewis? Well, what's next for you?
I'm going to take a vacation and then I'm going to come back and decide what I want to do. I'm not sure what or where or who with, but I'm just going to chill out for a bit.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you very much for your time today, Lewis. I understand it's been a very busy week for you, but I'd like to take the chance to also thank you for your many years of service as well to the city on behalf of everyone here at Weazel. And we look forward to seeing what's next for you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your time and everyone else's time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.